And welcome back to the Arkham Marathon, guys. I'm not bothering with the intro this time because, well, at this point, you get the idea. But with that said, Batman Arkham City, and wow. I mean, holy shit, wow. This is one game I've been itching to do for a really long time now. With the success of Arkham Asylum, fans everywhere were even more excited when Rocksteady had released a teaser for the next Batman game, hinting at a much bigger world to explore, and something seriously wrong with the Joker. Up until its release, everyone was hyped. I remember friends at school were talking about this game 24/7. I wasn't following the game too closely since I didn't get a chance to play Asylum, but when it came out, it exploded. Fans were talking about it, critics were praising the hell out of it, and it won so many awards, even Game of the Year. But that's not how I got to experience it. I did from this guy, my cousin Max, who you've seen on the channel before. He got this opening weekend, and when he did, there was nothing else on the TV for a good year. So that alone got me interested. So I finally got the game, sat down and played, and when I went to turn it on a second time, my PS3's disc reader stopped working. That was just mean. I wanted to play the game so much, but instead I could only play whenever I was at Max's house, which wasn't very often back then. However, I eventually got the Wii U version sometime later and played it that way. And about 1 year later, I managed to get a new PS3 and managed to play the full game through. And it is nice to finally be able to play the PS3 version. That was just my personal experience with first playing Arkham City all those years ago. But considering the game's success, what do you say we dig a little deeper to see what we can find? With that said, let's talk about the game's story. So if you watched the Arkham Asylum review, you'll know that I mentioned Quincy Sharp, the former mayor of Arkham, had a proposal that involved a large chunk of Gotham City. Well, 2 years later, they finally went through with the plan as Sharp, now the mayor of Gotham, had turned a section of the city into a prison called Arkham City. How this was passed, I have no idea, but I guess it doesn't really matter since this game never draws attention to it. The only important thing is that the city is a war zone between Two-Face, the Penguin, and the Joker. So the game starts out with Bruce Wayne holding a press conference to shut down Arkham City, but I think Bruce kind of got this thing backwards as he holds the conference right outside the walls of Arkham City. Moments later, Tiger Guards arrest Wayne on the charge of making stupid-ass decisions like that and drag him inside the city. Once he wakes up, we are introduced to Hugo Strange, the real mastermind behind Arkham City's creation, and also knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. How does he know this? Well, what do you say we go to the Wheel of Reasons to find out for ourselves? Alright, bring it in, guys. Come on. Okay. Damn it! That always happens! Yeah, the game never really explains how Strange found this out, but I guess it also doesn't matter since Strange threatens to reveal the secret identity and tells him he's going to initiate something called Protocol 10 and leaves him at that. Bruce is eventually set free into Arkham as he calls in the Batsuit. Batman eventually finds out that Catwoman is being held by Two-Face and rescues her to find out what she knows about Protocol 10. She gives him an answer that could best be summarized as, I don't know. With Batman now deciding to look for the Joker to find answers, we find out that the Joker is terminally ill from the strains of Titan that remain in his blood from the asylum. To make matters even worse, Joker reveals that he not only knows nothing about Protocol 10, he injected Batman with some of his poisoned blood. So I guess Joker finally fulfilled his dream of being inside of Batman. Joker then tells Batman that he commissioned Mr. Freeze to make a cure and sends Batman to retrieve it. Also, Hugo Strange says that Protocol 10 will start in 7 hours. Just thought I'd point that out. Batman later finds out that Mr. Freeze is being held captive by the Penguin and goes to rescue him. He eventually finds Penguin's hideout, but in order to actually get into the facility, he has to take out his defense systems. But in order to do that, he has to take out the signal jampers. Yeah, you may notice a pattern here so far. I won't touch on it now, but I will in a little bit. Meanwhile, Hugo Strange says that Protocol 10 will be in 5 hours. Batman then gets in the hideout and finds Mr. Freeze, who says Penguin is holding his suit, which also has the formula for the cure. Batman eventually does get the suit to take on Penguin, but it seems he has a few tricks up his sleeve in the form of Solomon Grundy. How did he gain control over such a powerful DC character? Okay, now they just got lazy. How the hell do you justify Solomon goddamn Grundy being here? He's a freaking zombie who goes all over the place. The only explanation we get is that Penguin just found him when he got the place. Gee, it was pretty lucky he wasn't in some other part of Gotham. Otherwise, we couldn't have taken out Penguin faster. Well, after taking out this weird plot element, Freeze eventually tells Batman that the cure won't work unless a certain catalyst is added. Thankfully, Batman finds out that the catalyst is in the blood of Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul, Rosetta Stone al Ghul. How is it pronounced again? It's kind of like Ocarina of Time versus Ocarina of Time. It just changes with every incarnation. Also, thankfully, one of Ra's al Ghul's soldiers just happened to be held by Penguin as Batman follows her. While in the chase, he runs into Robin, who delivers the line launcher, and instead of accepting his help, Batman essentially tells him to just fuck off. Well, sucks for him. Anyway, Batman follows the ninja back to the League of Shadows, where he reunites with Ra's daughter, Talia, who kindly greets him. I don't know why, but every time I see Batman getting bitch slapped, it's just hilarious to me. In fact, could you see a loop with that for a while? They say there's nothing good on the internet. After proving himself, Batman is finally allowed to see Ra's, as he offers Batman a chance to take his place and kill him.
Kill me. Replace me as that of the demon. It is your destiny.
Again, say that to Batfleck and just see how it goes for you.
Kill me. Replace me as that of the demon.
Batman naturally refuses to kill him, resulting in Ra's al Ghul jumping into the Lazarus pit to regain his life. Batman does defeat him and warns Ra's to stop his crusade, and leaves with his blood. Yeah, I'm sure I'll never hear from him again. Eventually we return back to Freeze's, where he makes a cure, and then decides to do this.
Order. This is not a time for negotiation.
Mr. Freeze tells Batman to retrieve his wife Nora in exchange for the cure, and instead of doing that, since it literally just takes no time to do it at all, Batman just decides to go, "Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Come on, give me the cure!" And this leads into a bit of a problem I have with the story. Batman's kind of a dick. Multiple times in the story, Batman will make really brash and brutal decisions after he's been poisoned. Seriously, aside from going, "Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Give me the cure! Come on, give me the cure!" He completely shuns out Robin when he offered to help him, when really there was a million things he could have done to help. Like finding Nora's wife to get the cure even faster. Even interrogations seem a bit forced, like when Freeze refuses to help Batman get the Penguin.
Today is not a good day to push me, Victor.
Stop!
Yeah. Batman, not the most professional move on your part. I know Batman is pressured by the fact that he's been poisoned and only has a few hours to live, but as someone who clearly has shown that he has trained himself to a mental and physical peak, you'd think he'd handle things a little better. It's not like it really matters at this point, since Harley just stole the cure from Freeze's vault and we need to go get it back. Meanwhile, Protocol 10 is just 2 hours away. Batman makes it back to Joker's hideout as we see the Joker fully cured. Well, that was fast. What the hell's even in that stuff?
Sensobeam!
You know what? Considering the plot holes in this story, that would actually make a lot of sense. I mean, just maybe Hugo Strange got help from the Ginyu Force or something. After finally taking out the Joker's goons, Hugo Strange actually executes Protocol 10. Now, keep this in mind, guys. Throughout the entire game, we've been given no information on Protocol 10 whatsoever, aside from Hugo Strange occasionally saying something over the PA. So, there's a lot of build-up to what this could possibly be. And when Protocol 10 is unleashed, what is it? Destroy Arkham City with some missiles. Joker gets the upper hand on Batman, but Talia eventually comes in to offer Joker a chance to use the Lazarus Pit. But it's actually a ploy just to have Batman follow them. Why doesn't she just kill him now? Well, that would require practicality, which, as we've seen so far in this story, is severely lacking, so fuck it. You could probably work in Clayface and it would make just as much sense. Batman eventually goes to help Talia, but is stopped by Alfred, who pretty much says, "Business first, bitch," so he goes to Hugo Strange. After a pretty epic climb up the Wonder Tower, we finally confront Hugo Strange.
You have not won. You cannot win. I, Hugo Strange, am your successor. I have saved Gotham.
I love that scene. Again, can I see a loop with that, please? You know, all we need now is someone to make a remix of that. Subscribers, I'm counting on you. Please make a remix of this. So Batman manages to stop Protocol 10 as we finally find out who the true mastermind is when he stabs Strange in the back. And who is it? It's Ra's al Ghul. Wait, what? Yeah, the grand master plan throughout the entire game was from a character who we only saw for a few minutes. He used Arkham City as a means to purge Gotham of its criminals, but it's short-lived as Hugo Strange activates Protocol 11, which blows up the Watchtower. Of course, Batman manages to get out. Mr. Al Ghul?
Fatality!
Well, Protocol 10 has been stopped, but Joker interrupts our victory by challenging Batman to a fight on the theater. Once we arrive, Talia does something actually logical. She stabs Joker in the back. Well, that took you guys long enough, but it's short-lived as Talia is eventually shot by Joker. Huh? Well, if this is the Joker, then who is the guy who got stabbed? Oh my god, I was fucking kidding! Okay, to be fair, Clayface is one of the only out-of-nowhere villains in this game that actually makes a little bit of sense, since it helps explain why the cure worked so fast. But still, that doesn't explain why the Joker didn't take it when Harley stole it from Freeze. Well, after a pretty enjoyable fight, Batman cuts up Clayface and sends him into the Lazarus Pit. Batman drinks some of the cure, ridding him of the poison, while Joker begs for the rest, but accidentally destroys it when he stabs Batman. Batman eventually tells Joker that even after all the horrible things he's done, he still would have saved him, resulting in Joker laughing himself to death. I have a feeling this shot was somewhat of an homage to the Tim Burton Batman film, kind of similar when looking at it. Batman carries the Joker outside of Arkham, laying him to rest, with Batman leaving the scene, ending the game. So yeah, that's Arkham City's story. Overall, it was enjoyable, but I do have some issues with it. Aside from what I mentioned so far, the plot kinda goes all over the place. Figuring out what Protocol 10 is, dealing with Joker's poison, finding a cure for said poison, dealing with the League of Shadows quick entry, and all of the side quests that you have to do in the game. You could be trying to find Mr. Freeze's hideout, but suddenly stop and decide to deal with Deadshot. Or when taking out one of Penguin's jammers, just go save a Riddler hostage. It also doesn't help that Protocol 10 itself had no build-up outside of Strange occasionally saying how much time is left. And for it to have such a weak reveal is really a letdown. Also, there isn't a lot of urgency when it comes to Protocol 10 since you're busy dealing with the poison. Even that can get sidelined with the multiple side quests you could do, which take you off the beaten pathway all the time. All the loopholes that happen get pretty distracting after a while too. Again, how is Solomon Grundy underneath the Iceberg Lounge? That will never make sense to me. Oh my god. That is hands down the most convenient bullshit I've ever seen from a DC villain. And considering what we're up against, that's saying a fucking lot. Lastly, I don't find Hugo Strange as an intimidating villain. He has Batman's secret identity, but never does anything with it. And he never takes the chance to kill him 1, 2, 3 times the first 10 minutes of the game. It also doesn't help that he's pushed aside for Ra's al Ghul. This bit really reminds me of Batman Begins, where we have a potentially good villain, but instead it was someone who really didn't have as much development, or screen time. Even the plot in the DLC's Harley Revenge seems kind of weak. A few days after the events of the game, Harley takes Batman hostage to get revenge for the Joker's death. Short and to the point, it doesn't work, thus giving us nothing new in terms of story, which really makes me wonder why this was even here in the first place. Well, if I can give it credit for anything, it does let us play as Robin during a story sequence, which is something I think the main campaign could have benefited from. I know, I've been pretty negative throughout the majority of this synopsis, but don't misunderstand, there are some things I do legitimately enjoy. For one thing, I feel the characters, aside from Strange, are very well represented. Penguin and Two-Face are awesome in their roles. We actually get to see the Riddler this time instead of just hearing him, which is fun to watch. My favorite of the bunch, though, has to be Mr. Freeze. Aside from Joker, Mr. Freeze is my favorite Batman villain, and he is shown so well here. A scientist who just wants to create a cure for his wife, but everyone keeps getting in his way. And a lot of that drama does come down to the performance. Maurice LaMarche is perfect as Mr. Freeze. He perfectly runs the gamut from sad and sorrowful.
Please, find Nora. She's all I have left.
To angry and vengeful.
You will bring me Nora, or you will die.
Once again, the voice acting is fantastic. Conroy is still killing it as Batman, but Mark Hamill, my god, I feel bad for him. Because Joker is sick throughout most of the game, he has to make his voice sound like it, and I can only imagine how taxing it is for him to do that.
Get back here, Harley.
But I want to know who he is, sweetie.
No one's who you think they are, my dear. Why spoil the fun?
It was all a lie. There's nothing wrong with you.
Nice of you to say, but you of all people should know there's plenty wrong with me.
And on the topic of the Joker, his death at the end is unbelievably well done. His final laugh and that creepy smile always sends shivers down my spine. And killing him off was a really ballsy move. Again, it's nothing new since it happens, every other comic? But still, it is really well done here. So yeah, the plot was kind of all over the place, and yeah, it didn't make a whole lot of sense a lot of the times. But still had enough highlights for me to enjoy it. But yeah, I think I've gone on long enough saying about the story, so let's see how the game actually plays. Since Arkham City's core design and structure is largely the same as Asylum, we won't have to go over too much, but this game does add enough bells and whistles to make the combat and stealth sections even more fun to go through. For one thing, Batman and company can now counter multiple thugs when prompted, and can use almost all the gadgets and upgrades from the last game, allowing you to perform even more diverse knockouts. Like last time, you can earn experience to upgrade your arsenal of attacks, combat, and health. And I'm happy to say that just about all of Batman's gadgets from the last game are available from the start. The Bat Claw, Explosive Gel, the Cryptographic Sequencer, and the Remote Control Batarang, which is much more useful this time, since you have more control over it now. Like being able to speed up or slow down, and make U-turns. The only thing you don't have at the start is the Line Launcher, but you get that later anyway. Batman also gets some new gadgets to play with. One of the first ones we get is the Smoke Pellet. If you ever find yourself surrounded by armed mooks, you can use it to shield yourself in smoke so that you can make a quick escape to gargoyles and vents, or avoid more firearms. You can also use it for offense, blinding thugs so that you can easily take them out. Later on, after rescuing the Doctor, Batman takes something out of this machine and makes... Okay, that's just ridiculous. I know that Batman is essentially the DC equivalent of MacGyver, but where the fuck did he make that thing from? I'm no engineer, but I'm pretty sure wires plus a trigger don't make an electric gun. But it is overall fun to use, not only being able to open certain doors and such, you can also use it to stun mooks mid-combat, or confuse them during stealth. Later on, you can get the Disruptor, which is needed to defeat the Penguin, but you can later upgrade to take down firearms from a distance, making stealth sections a bit more manageable. And lastly, there's the Freeze Blast, which can be used to freeze an enemy in place, making them easier to take down. This is really fun to use, especially during stealth sequences. It's just fun to see that guy standing still with no one being able to help him. With all these toys and gadgets at his disposal, Batman has never been more versatile as he is here than any other Batman game beforehand. And I feel it does lead to a much better experience than Arkham Asylum. Now don't get me wrong, I still love that game, but this truly makes you feel like you're the real Dark Knight. But with better gadgets comes more efficient mooks. You have your returning mooks with knives and stun batons, but there are also thugs with riot shields that can block attacks, mooks with added armor that require rapid fire punching, and even some mooks that plank proximity mines, which limits your space. Some thugs even have devices that jam your detective mode, and almost every single enemy in the game can check gargoyles, knowing that you can use them as a means to escape.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
I think it's safe to say that the enemies provide a greater challenge here than in Arkham Asylum, which may frighten some new players at first, but I don't think it ever gets too crazy. Every death I suffer was usually from me being reckless and the thugs getting the upper hand, so whenever I do manage to clean out a room of enemies, it leads to a greater feeling of satisfaction. If you remember from the Arkham Asylum review, one of the things I was really disappointed about were the boss fights. I'm really happy to say that they are much more varied and way more fun to play with this time around. Despite making no sense in the story, Selma and Grundy is a lot of fun to go against. The fight against Ra's al Ghul is just pure awesome and has some of the best imagery in the game. But by far, the best boss and the absolute highlight of the entire game is the fight against Mr. Freeze. This is one of the most interesting bosses I've seen in years. The more you attack him, he will adjust, so you can't use the same strategy twice. It's intense, challenging, and insanely fun to replay using different strategies. In terms of structure, Arkham City completely trumps Arkham Asylum in terms of scale, and with a larger playground comes more things to do. I am not kidding, there are a lot more side quests to do in this game. You can help rescue political prisoners, discover more upgrades, listen to several conversations and radio frequencies, and have mysteries to solve. Every optional quest you can do will be labeled on your map so you can set markers to in the overworld. But aside from that, there are also some rogues to hunt down and detain. You can track down Zsasz by listening to his phone calls, find Deadshot's victims to take him out, find all of Bane's Titan containers, search for Mr. Freeze's wife Nora, tracking down a mysterious man who leaves pieces of a map. Honestly, the amount of stuff you could do in Arkham City completely dwarfs Arkham Asylum, which already had a fair amount of stuff to do in it. But with the emphasis on such a larger world, the developers wanted to put as much content into it as possible. The majority of Arkham City's playtime comes from this, and I think it's a good thing. If the city didn't have much to do, or if it was just boring in general, it would probably get really tiring traveling after a while. Basically, it keeps up the pace, which I like. What I don't like are some of the longer missions. Edward Nigma, I am looking right at you, my man. The Riddler has set up shop all around the city, setting riddles and trophies that you need to collect. The total amount of riddles you can collect has been doubled, and you need about 400 riddles in order to actually find the bastard. And considering the size of Arkham City, well, I think you know the rest. At the very least, it is cool to actually see the Riddler this time and not just hear him over phone calls. I really like the ending of Bane's side quest where the two of them temporarily team up, but I wish it had ended with an actual fight against him. Instead, he's just stopped by a caged door. Yeah, he totally can't break through that. As far as Arkham City's presentation, I think the game looks just as good as Asylum, but City definitely has the advantage in terms of atmosphere. The use of lighting and shadows really helps to instill a constant strain of fear and paranoia into the player, and really helps bring the city to life. It also helps that you won't need to use detective mode as much as last time, so we can actually look at the game's graphics this time. I love Arkham Asylum's atmospheric soundtrack because it fits so well with the dark and gothic setting, but since the game was made much bigger, the music had to reflect that. As a result, Arkham City's music is amazing. Composers Nick Arundel and Ron Fish have really outdone themselves with such an epic soundtrack. You'll find yourself on the title screen for about 5 minutes just listening to the amazing opening theme. It fits so well with Batman. I guess one of the last things to talk about is the DLC, and yeah, this is a bit awkwardly handled. Specifically with Catwoman. If you got the game new, there would be a code inside the case where you could download her for free. But if you got this game used, you'd have to pay for her. God, that sounds way worse when I put it like that. Even Catwoman's stuff isn't really that special. Well, I love how she's handled. She's essentially just a faster Batman with less gadgets. She can really rack up large combos, and it's pretty fun to travel around the city with. But that does lead to my issue with her. She should have just been part of the game to begin with. Her story scenarios only last for 45 minutes, and really don't make any sense. And just so you know, I'm not bothering with the spoiler alert for this one because it's really not worth it. Catwoman finds out that her stuff's been stolen and she tries to get it back. She goes to Ivy for help but is then trapped dangling upside down. Then it switches back to Batman. And after about 4 hours of gameplay, we switch back to Catwoman still hanging upside down. What the hell happened? I mean, is this just a flashback or are we supposed to assume that she hung upside down for nearly 4 hours? What, was she trained by the CIA to resist torture or something? The scenario in and of itself isn't really that bad, it's just kind of weirdly put together. But my favorite part of Catwoman's story is when she gets her stuff back, but she's conflicted between saving Batman or leaving Arkham. So if you choose the option where you leave, Catwoman just says, screw him, and the game just ends. What the hell? That's one hell of an ending. Batman dies and the world is fucked. I like the times I get to play as Catwoman, but honestly, I don't think it's worth spending money just to get a chance to use her. However, there is a way you could avoid that since Arkham City eventually was re-released as the game of the year, with all the DLC packed in. However, the version I'm using to cover the DLC is the 2013 re-release of Arkham City for the Wii U, titled Arkham City Armoured Edition. The DLC consists of Harley's Revenge, where you can play as Robin, all the Catwoman stuff, and you can play as Nightwing. All 3 of them are really fun to play as despite the smaller inventory. But the best part of the DLC to me are the alternate costumes. I'm a sucker for shit like this, and Batman has a ton. My favorites are the animated series costume, which pops, but is such a treat for fans of the show, and the Batman Beyond suit. Though I will say it is weird seeing Bruce Wayne in the suit and not Terry McGinnis. Catwoman and Nightwing don't have as many costumes, but they at least have their animated counterparts. With all the DLC covered, I guess I should talk about what Armoured Edition adds to the game and see if it's actually worth owning. Structurally speaking, it's the exact same game. Everything that made Arkham City what it was is here and accounted for. I think the graphics were slightly improved with the shift to the Wii U, but that could just be my recording setup with the PS3. I have to use these damn component cables at 720p while I can record the Wii U at 1080p. The frame rate seems to chug at certain points of the game, which is a bit distracting but nothing I'll lose sleep over, and the soundtrack is kept intact. One major difference is the inclusion of the BAT system. While fighting, you'll notice that a small meter will fill up in the top right hand corner of the screen. Once it's full, you'll click on the thumbsticks, and suddenly Batman just became Bat God. Your power increases tremendously, allowing you to take down several guys with one punch. Even guys with riot shields and armor, even they can't go up against this. It does kind of alleviate the difficulty, so if you want a greater challenge, then this isn't a good choice to use. But I like using them just because it's fun to see thugs trembling before me.
Hey you, I'm the goddamn Batman.
Another difference, and probably the biggest difference of the bunch, is the control. Now don't worry, the buttons haven't been swapped around, combat and flight controls work exactly the same as the original version. It's just everything else. Instead of using the D-pad to select your weapons, use the gamepad's touchscreen to drag the item you want to use at that moment. It's actually pretty similar to how Twilight Princess HD handles items inventory, but here's the thing. I've never been a fan of that. In the original Arkham City, all you had to do was just hit a button on the D-pad and boom, you have it. Here, you have to stop, look down at the gamepad, select the items you want, and now you can use them. Also, this is done in real time, so you risk the possibility of getting attacked while trying to get the shit you need. This use of the gamepad slows the game's pace down to a grinding halt, when it was so much faster to use than in the original. In fact, one thing I've noticed is that everything you would use the select button for is all done with the touchscreen, using the maps, selecting objectives, upgrades as well, even controlling certain items. This I don't mind since you're really just aiming with the gyroscope. That's fine, but some items like the cryptographic sequencer was changed, certain voice clips can only be heard from the gamepad speakers, and the remote control batarang is only viewable from the touchscreen. Yeah, you don't look at the TV here, instead you just look down at the controller. It still controls the same, but I find it really distracting that I have to look down at a separate screen to use something that would have just been better to use on the TV. I wish this game had an option to use the Pro Controller, or at the very least to turn these off. I guess it's supposed to act like Batman's wrist computer since he's always looking down at it when you're using it. But tell me, would a gamepad strapped to my wrist look remotely threatening? I can only imagine Batman using this thing. Master Bruce, sorry to interrupt, but it seems that the Joker has planted laughing bombs across Gotham. I've sent you the coordinates now.
Okay, let me mount it down on my wrist map.
So they've already been installed into your car's GPS.
No, don't worry, this is faster.
So the timers on the bombs have already been counting down for quite a while now.
Don't worry, Alfred, this'll take care of things, no problem.
Master Bruce, people could die if you don't do something.
Oh, come on, since when have I ever let anyone down?
Miss Gordon?
That doesn't count! I mean, besides, it's just laughing gas. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Oh dear. As I mentioned before, Armoured Edition has all the DLC bundled in, so you can still have fun with all the costumes. All the Catwoman episodes are also available, as well as Harley's Revenge. But I'm convinced that it's absolutely broken in this version. Not the Catwoman stuff, that works just fine. It's Harley's Revenge that just seems not to work. I don't know if it's just my copy or it's just an issue with Armoured Edition in general, but every time I try to go through the door to advance, it just takes me back to the title screen. Why? What happened? Did Robin just have enough and said to himself,
Yeah, let him rot.
So because of this, I had to use the spare clips I could find on YouTube. Shout out to SGB Likes to Play for having a full playthrough. Check them out, they do some really awesome Let's Plays. Harley's Revenge is a fun time all things considered, and again, it is cool playing as Robin in the campaign style. I know I've mostly mentioned negative things about Armoured Edition, but it's really not a bad port. Most of the things I mentioned are just out of preference. I'm not a fan of the touchscreen integration, but others are, such as this guy. It's still the same Arkham City I know and love, so there isn't much to complain about. If you have a Wii U, this is a fine version of the game to have, but honestly, I'd say stick with either the PS3, 360, or absolutely the PC version. This thing runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, and it looks beautiful. If you've played Arkham Asylum but haven't played Arkham City yet, I just have one simple question. Why? Arkham City does just about everything Asylum did even better. The story is a bit shaky, but the combat's even better, stealth is even more satisfying, the boss fights are amazing, I love the grand scale of the city, and the side missions help bring it to life. Even more so than Asylum, it's a near perfect game. The developers were not kidding around when they say they were going to make an even bigger and more epic sequel. If Asylum is the Batman Begins of the Arkham series, then City is the Dark Knight of it, and any problems I have will just come off as extreme nitpicking. It's earned its spot as the Game of the Year in 2011, and has easily earned a spot in my top 10 favorite games of all time. If you get a chance to play this, then I'd recommend getting the Game of the Year edition since it comes bundled with all the DLC, as well as it being relatively inexpensive. And I'd say it's worth getting Armoured Edition if you have a Wii U. Again, my issues with the game are just out of preference, and they may not bother you as much. We are halfway through the Arkham series, and we've already reached what's considered the high point. Now, that's usually not a good sign for a series like this, but who knows? Maybe the next few games aren't so bad after all? Who knows? I mean, just because a game that's considered the high point doesn't mean the games that come after it aren't good. I see you creeping! Well, 2 down, 2 more to go. So, next time we meet, we're actually going to go back in time to before the events of Arkham Asylum. So, next up, Batman Arkham Origins. Though, to be honest, I don't have too many memories with this one. Well, I'll guess I have to find out for myself. Well, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.